Close your eyes and listen to the raw, unforgiving acoustics of a world we no longer recognize. Before human civilization carved its name into the earth, this frozen frontier was entirely dominated by titans. Welcome to the Pleistocene epoch. This was not a mythical wasteland, but a brutal biomechanical proving ground where the largest, most formidable terrestrial mammals in Earth's history fought a daily war for survival. From apex predators wielding 30-centimeter skeletal blades to colossal herbivores engineered to withstand absolute freezing temperatures, these are the lost giants of the Ice Age. Today, we strip away the Hollywood myths and examine the fossil record. Join us as we track the real-time footprints of the 10 most iconic, awe-inspiring animals that ruled the frozen dawn of our world. To survive the dawn of the Ice Age, evolution demanded absolute extremes. In a landscape defined by plunging temperatures and relentless predators, the most effective defense mechanism was simply to grow too large to be killed. This was the era of the walking fortresses. The woolly mammoth, Mammuthus primigenius. Imagine a timeline where the Great Pyramids of Egypt are actively being constructed by ancient engineers, while thousands of kilometers away, the quintessential giants of the Ice Age are still trekking through the snow. This is not a cinematic fantasy. It is the staggering archaeological reality of the woolly mammoth. While the vast majority of these magnificent beasts succumbed to a warming climate and human hunting around 10,000 years ago, a resilient, isolated population miraculously clung to survival on the remote Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean. Battered by the elements and completely cut off from the mainland, these late survivors defied extinction until a mere 4,000 years ago. Towering up to 3.4 meters at the shoulder and weighing around 6,000 kilograms, these prehistoric colossi were the undisputed walking fortresses of the tundra. They were biologically engineered for extreme cold, equipped with dense fur and fiercely curved tusks stretching up to 4.2 meters, which they utilized as massive snowplows to forage. From an archaeological perspective, the mammoth's legacy is permanently etched into our own human story. Early hominids did not merely hunt them for survival. They utilized their massive skeletal structures to engineer complex shelters and carved their ivory into sophisticated tools. Today, the pristine permafrost of Siberia has yielded specimens so perfectly preserved that geneticists have successfully sequenced their DNA. Now, science stands on the precipice of potentially resurrecting a cold-adapted hybrid by inserting this genetic material into Asian elephant cells. Looking at this from the lens of a researcher, it presents a profound ethical dilemma, forcing us to ask not just if we have the technology to reverse the extinctions our ancestors helped precipitate, but whether we truly have the right to do so. But massive size was not exclusively an adaptation for the freezing cold. Deep within the ancient tropical rainforests of South America, another giant utilized its colossal bulk not for warmth, but as an impenetrable biological shield. The giant ground sloth, Megatherium. If you travel deep into the uncharted territories of the modern Amazon basin, indigenous tribes still whisper terrifying accounts of the Mapinguari. They describe a towering, foul-smelling monster that walks upright, effortlessly topples trees, and emits bone-chilling growls. While cryptozoologists chase shadows, archaeologists recognize these descriptions as an eerie, almost perfect biological match for the giant ground sloths, a real lineage of monsters that once ruled the continent, most famously represented by the Megatherium and its Amazonian cousin, the Aenocyon. Its scientific name translates simply to Great Beast. However, that title barely does justice to its staggering proportions. Stretching an unbelievable 6 meters from snout to tail and tipping the scales at nearly 4,000 kilograms, the Megatherium was one of the largest land mammals to ever walk the earth. Despite possessing massive, scythe-like claws that looked like they belonged to an apex predator, this giant was actually a slow-moving herbivore. Its colossal size acted as an impenetrable biological shield, effectively protecting it from even the most desperate saber-toothed cats. Those lethal claws were primarily utilized as heavy-duty foraging tools to pull down high branches and strip tree bark. Yet, if cornered, the Megatherium could rear up on its powerful hind legs and use those same claws to deliver a devastating, defensive strike. The fossil record dictates that this magnificent giant vanished around 10,000 years ago, a casualty of sudden climate shifts and the aggressive hunting pressures of early human expansion into the Americas. But in the darkest, most inaccessible corners of the rainforest, the legend of the Mapinguari persists, leaving us to wonder if the ghost of the Megatherium is truly gone, or merely hiding out of sight. From the dense jungles of the Americas, this evolutionary armor of size also shaped the primate lineage in the misty mountains of Asia, giving rise to a creature that forever blurs the line between paleontology and folklore. The giant ape, Gigantopithecus blacki. For centuries, indigenous folklore across the globe has whispered of towering, hairy wild men dwelling deep within the remote mountains. While cryptid hunters endlessly search for Bigfoot or the Yeti, archaeologists have already unearthed the biological foundation of these legends, the Gigantopithecus. Remarkably, our entire understanding of this primate is derived almost exclusively from fragmented fossilized jawbones and thousands of isolated teeth, many originally found sold as dragon bones in traditional Chinese apothecaries. By analyzing ancient proteins preserved deep within the dental enamel, researchers have definitively proven that this creature was not a direct ancestor of early humans, but rather a close evolutionary cousin to the modern orangutan. It was a peaceful, ground-dwelling herbivore, relying on a highly specialized diet of tough, fibrous plants and fruits. However, when the Pleistocene climate drastically cooled, its lush subtropical forest habitat rapidly shrank into open savannas. Unable to adapt its strict diet or climb trees to secure alternative food sources, the species slowly starved into extinction between 295,000 and 215,000 years ago. Only by scaling up those massive fossilized jawbones can researchers grasp its terrifying physical reality. Biomechanical reconstructions reveal a primate of unimaginable scale, towering up to 3 meters tall when standing upright and weighing a staggering 300 kilograms, easily securing its title as the absolute largest ape to ever walk the earth. However, no biological fortress is truly invincible. The emergence of these colossal herbivores ignited the most ruthless evolutionary arms race in Earth's history. The Ice Age rapidly transformed into a theater of hypercarnivores, forcing predators to develop terrifying new weapons to bring down the titans. The Saber-Toothed Cat, Smilodon. The defining characteristic of the Smilodon fatalis is instantly recognizable. Two fearsome, laterally compressed upper canines measuring up to 18 centimeters in length. However, beneath these terrifying blades lies a skeletal architecture that completely defies our modern understanding of feline predators. Unlike the sleek, aerodynamic cheetahs or lions of today, this Ice Age apex predator was not built for prolonged, high-speed pursuits across the open plains. Instead, tipping the scales at up to 280 kilograms, its bone structure reveals a heavily muscled, remarkably robust, almost bear-like physique. It possessed exceptionally powerful forelimbs and a sloping back, engineered by evolution for pure, explosive wrestling power rather than endurance running. From a biomechanical perspective, those iconic 30-centimeter sabers harbored a critical vulnerability. They were surprisingly brittle, highly prone to snapping entirely if they struck the thick femur or ribs of a struggling target. To circumvent this evolutionary flaw, the Smilodon utilized a highly specialized, ambush-based hunting strategy. It relied on its massive upper body strength to completely pin giant herbivores, like juvenile mastodons or prehistoric bison, immobile against the ground. Only then would it deliver a surgical, fatal strike to the soft tissue of the throat, cleanly severing the carotid artery and trachea. The asphalt seeps of the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles provide researchers with our most definitive archive of these biomechanics, yielding thousands of perfectly preserved specimens. Yet, this extreme physical specialization ultimately dictated their extinction. When the Pleistocene climate shifted and their slow-moving, colossal prey died out, the Smilodon was left stranded in an environment that required the agility to catch smaller, swifter prey. An evolutionary pivot its magnificent, heavy-set frame simply could not make. While the Saber-Toothed Cat relied on stealth and surgical precision, another predator emerged on the same continent that embodied pure, unadulterated brute force and the terrifying power of the pack. The dire wolf, Aenocyon dirus. Pop culture has heavily romanticized the dire wolf, but the paleontological reality of this animal is far more terrifying. Roaming the expansive landscapes of the Americas until roughly 13,000 years ago, this apex predator possessed a bite force engineered for absolute destruction. Biomechanical analysis of their unusually broad skulls and massive carnassial teeth reveals an estimated bite force significantly higher than any modern canine. To put this into perspective, while the modern saltwater crocodile holds today's absolute terrestrial record with a staggering 16,000 newtons of jaw pressure, the dire wolf reigned supreme among Pleistocene mammals. Their bite was estimated to be nearly 130% stronger than that of a modern gray wolf, functioning not as a hyena-like bone crusher, but as a highly specialized flesh shearer mounted on a heavily muscled 68-kilogram frame. This immense jaw pressure dictated their brutal attack capabilities. They were not engineered for the marathon-like endurance hunting that defines modern wolves. Instead, the dire wolf utilized a violent, close-quarters grappling strategy. Hunting in highly coordinated packs, they would target the heavily armored megafauna of the Ice Age, such as giant ground sloths and wild horses. Using their sheer mass and devastating bite, they would latch onto their colossal targets, using their reinforced skulls to absorb the impact of the struggle while dragging the herbivores to the ground. Their jaws were perfectly capable of snapping thick limb bones and shearing through heavy muscle tissue to rapidly immobilize their prey. However, this absolute reliance on giant, slow-moving targets ultimately sealed their evolutionary fate. When the last ice age concluded, the megafauna that sustained these packs rapidly vanished. Unlike the leaner, highly adaptable gray wolves that could easily pivot to hunting smaller, swifter game, the dire wolf's massive biological engine required immense caloric intake. Unable to satisfy their savage hunger in a warming world, the most powerful canine to ever exist simply followed its food sources directly into oblivion. But even the most savage packs of dire wolves or the most seasoned saber-toothed cats could never truly hunt in peace. Because across the vast, open steppes, a colossal opportunist was quietly tracking them. The short-faced bear, Arctodus simus. If you were to encounter the greater short-faced bear during the Pleistocene epoch, attempting to outrun it would be a fatal miscalculation. Towering at an unbelievable 3.4 meters when standing on its hind legs and weighing upwards of 900 kilograms, this colossal beast holds the terrifying title of the largest terrestrial mammalian predator to ever live in North America. However, its size is not its most frightening evolutionary trait. Unlike modern grizzly bears, which have a pigeon-toed stance that gives them a characteristic waddle, the short-faced bear possessed unusually long, muscular legs with forward-pointing toes. While early theories suggested this engineered them for explosive speed, modern biomechanics reveal these legs were built for terrifyingly efficient, long-distance pacing across vast territories. As its name suggests, it possessed an unusually short, extremely broad snout that resembled a massive lion more than a modern bear. This specialized facial structure functioned as an unparalleled sensory engine, housing a massive nasal cavity that could detect rotting carcasses from miles away, while simultaneously providing a bone-crushing bite force. Because of these unique biomechanics, paleontologists have passionately debated its primary hunting strategy. While some once argued it was a high-speed pursuit predator capable of running down wild horses, experts now heavily lean towards classifying it as the ultimate kleptoparasite. It was a creature so massive and intimidating that it simply tracked down the kills of dire wolves and saber-toothed cats, using its sheer bulk to scare them off and steal their hard-earned meals. Ultimately, its reliance on a massive caloric intake was its undoing. As the global climate warmed around 11,000 years ago, and the great megafauna of North America collapsed, the short-faced bear's colossal biological engine could no longer be fueled, leading to the extinction of the ultimate Ice Age giant. While mammalian carnivores dominated the battlegrounds of the Northern Hemisphere, evolution took an entirely different, almost alien turn on the isolated continent of Australia. Here, there were no giant wolves or towering bears. Instead, this sun-baked land was ruled by a cold-blooded nightmare. The Megalania, Varanus priscus. Stretching up to an unbelievable 7 meters in length and tipping the scales at over 500 kilograms in its maximum estimates, the Megalania was an absolute nightmare of scale and predation. This apex predator holds the terrifying distinction of being the largest land-dwelling lizard in Earth's history. While it bore a striking resemblance to the modern monitor lizard, its true evolutionary lineage connects it closely to the formidable Komodo dragon. However, its sheer mass completely redefines the concept of reptilian hunting. From a paleontological perspective, the Australian outback of 50,000 years ago was an unforgiving battleground, and the Megalania sat uncontested at the very top of the food chain. It did not rely on long, exhausting pursuits. Instead, it was a master of the ambush, utilizing the dense brush to launch sudden, devastating attacks on giant marsupials, such as the hippo-like Diprotodon. Modern biochemical analysis of its closest living relatives suggests an even more sinister hunting mechanism. Researchers theorize that the Megalania delivered a lethal bite laced with complex venomous saliva. Even a glancing strike would induce rapid shock and blood loss, allowing the lizard to casually track its dying prey over long distances. Interestingly, ancient Aboriginal oral traditions frequently recount chilling legends of colossal goannas, monitor lizards, roaming the outback. For archaeologists, these indigenous narratives present a tantalizing possibility that the earliest human inhabitants of Australia shared their landscape with this venomous titan before it vanished into the sands of time. This era of bizarre extremes was not always defined by lethal weaponry or toxic bites. In the freezing expanses of Eurasia, evolution pushed the boundaries of anatomy for a completely different purpose: the ultimate display of vanity and genetic superiority. The Irish Elk, Megaloceros giganteus. In the annals of paleontology, few creatures are as wildly misunderstood as the Irish elk. First and foremost, its popular name is a historical double misnomer. It was not actually an elk, but rather the largest species of deer to ever walk the earth. Furthermore, it was not exclusive to Ireland. Its vast territory stretched all the way across Eurasia and into northern Africa. The defining spectacle of the Megaloceros giganteus was, undeniably, its crowning glory. A pair of immense antlers, spanning an astounding 3.6 meters from tip to tip. Standing over 2 meters tall at the shoulder, the sheer biomechanical reality of supporting these weapons is staggering. Like modern deer, the male Irish elk shed and regrew these 40-kilogram antlers every single year. From a biological perspective, this annual regeneration required a monumental intake of calcium and phosphorus. For decades, early evolutionary biologists pointed to the Irish elk as a tragic example of orthogenesis, a flawed theory suggesting that evolution simply got stuck in a loop, forcing the antlers to grow so large that the animals could no longer lift their heads or escape predators. Modern archaeological analysis, however, paints a much more complex picture. These massive antlers were an evolutionary triumph of sexual selection, used to intimidate rivals and attract mates without risking lethal physical combat. Their ultimate downfall was not the size of their antlers, but a rapidly shifting climate. As the Pleistocene epoch ended, the lush, nutrient-rich grasses of the open steppe were replaced by dense subarctic tundra and forests. Faced with a sudden lack of high-quality forage, the males simply could no longer extract the immense minerals required to fuel their magnificent, hyper-specialized biology. Around 11,000 years ago, starved of the very nutrients that built their crowns, these majestic titans quietly vanished from the European landscape. Though modern carbon dating reveals a resilient, isolated population, clung to survival in the Ural Mountains and Siberia until a mere 7,700 years ago. As the glaciers finally began their aggressive retreat, the vast majority of these awe-inspiring giants quietly vanished into the thawing earth. But before the curtain fell on the Pleistocene epoch, a few magnificent survivors left an indelible mark on the memories of a new, fragile animal just learning to conquer the world: human beings. The American Mastodon, Mammut americanum. While the Woolly Mammoth dominated the frozen, open steppes, a completely different evolutionary masterpiece ruled the dense, shadowed forests of the New World. The American Mastodon was a distinct, heavily furred proboscidean, perfectly engineered for an entirely different ecological niche. To the untrained eye, they might simply resemble their mammoth cousins, but their biological architecture tells a profound story of adaptation. The secret to their survival lay hidden in their jaws. Unlike mammoths, which possessed flat, washboard-like teeth designed for grinding tough steppe grasses, the mastodon featured deep, cone-shaped cusps on their molars. This specialized dental hardware functioned like natural wood chippers, allowing them to effortlessly crush thick twigs, tough leaves, and fibrous pine needles in the deep woodlands. They also sported distinctly straighter, more parallel tusks, ideal for breaking heavy branches rather than plowing through deep snow. For countless generations, these forest dwellers successfully navigated the shifting landscapes of the Pleistocene, coexisting intimately with the first human populations in the Americas. Their enduring presence profoundly shaped the ecosystem and inspired the early art and culture of indigenous peoples. Yet, as the Ice Age aggressively retreated around 10,000 years ago, their beloved coniferous forests rapidly transformed, and early human hunting pressures intensified. The mastodon ultimately fell silent, joining the saber-toothed cats and dire wolves in the fossil record. They remain a poignant testament to an epoch where unparalleled titans walked the earth, an era that continues to haunt and fascinate our modern world. And as humanity ventured deeper into this unforgiving wilderness, they came face to face with the true, undisputed monarch of the Ice Age, a creature that we wouldn't just hunt, but revere and immortalize on the very walls of the earth itself. The Eurasian cave lion, Panthera spelaea. Society universally crowns the lion as the quintessential king of the scorching African savanna. However, during the Pleistocene epoch, the absolute monarch of the freezing northern steppes was the Eurasian cave lion. Scientifically classified as Panthera spelaea, this apex predator completely shatters our modern geographical understanding of big cats. Stretching over 2 meters in length, excluding its tail, and tipping the scales at an estimated 317 kilograms, it was significantly larger, heavier, and far more robust than any lion alive today. Despite its popular name, paleontological evidence suggests these massive felines did not spend their entire lives hunting in subterranean darkness. Instead, they utilized sheltered rock overhangs and cavern entrances, primarily as strategic dens for raising vulnerable cubs or protecting their hard-earned kills from giant scavengers. Perhaps the most breathtaking aspect of the cave lion is how vividly we can study their biology today. Unlike most Ice Age titans, known only from fragmented, fossilized bones, the Siberian permafrost has yielded flawlessly mummified cave lion cubs. These astonishing discoveries feature intact golden fur, delicate facial whiskers, and perfectly preserved internal organs, effectively freezing them in time for tens of thousands of years. Furthermore, early human artists meticulously documented these predators in Paleolithic cave paintings, deliberately illustrating the males without the heavy manes characteristic of modern lions. For modern researchers, these unprecedented biological and cultural records blur the line between ancient paleontology and modern zoology, allowing us to practically look a prehistoric predator directly in the eyes. The ice has retreated, and the titans have fallen silent. Yet, the legacy of the Pleistocene epoch is far from erased. It is permanently written into our DNA, preserved in the frozen permafrost, and echoed in the legends we still tell today. These 10 magnificent creatures remind us that our planet is a dynamic, ever-changing stage, and that even the most invincible monarchs can be swept away by the relentless tide of nature. Now, I want to hear from you. If science could safely bring back just one of these Ice Age giants to the modern world, which one would you choose? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this cinematic journey back in time, please obliterate that like button and share this video with your fellow science and history enthusiasts. To join our next expedition into the unknown, make sure to hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a documentary. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.